Is it working now? Much better? Okay, so I think I was beginning to just explain that I finished my MBA 27 years ago. I then moved on to join Colgate-Palmolive in brand management in New York, and then came down to South Africa. I finished my corporate career in 2002 as marketing director for Nike for the continent. So that's the last time I had a day job. Since then, I've had a passion job. In that time from 2002 to now, I focus my energies really on just a couple of things. And one, it is really how to unite the continent, how to build brands across the continent, and how to become a better African. You know, as it is, as a South African, you know how South Africa, there's South Africa, and they call other part Africa. But when you ask them, where are you? They're like, yeah, but you know, Africa. So I think, when I go through this, you'll get to know a little bit about me. Which one? This one? This one. And where do I point? There you go. So I've used about 12 passports in the last 10 years. And in those passports on the right-hand side, you can see those are my, left-hand side, those are my, the stamps from every single country in the continent. So I've crossed the borders pretty much at will, if you will. I have flown every single airline, perhaps, that I've seen in the continent. I do love Ethiopian. I think so. That's why it's the biggest plane there, because it's the one I've flown the most. But I mean, I'm a lifetime platinum at the used to be SA South African Airways. But I'm hoping that it will come back again as a great airline now. But I've got great friends across the continent, having flown every single airline there is. And Ethiopian is amazing. It is amazing what a great airline it is. But we'll talk about that as we go through this, sorry. As we go through. Where do I point? I point there. So I've dodged a number of traffic, driving through Cairo, through Mombasa, through Lagos, as you know, as part of the journey. Part of the journey of going through the continent. I've been from all kinds of blue trains. So from Tanzania to Zambia on the Tazara, which is about what ticket was about 54 hours, 54-hour train. It's not like the other blue train, which is the other one on the right-hand side, which I've also driven from Cape Town to Johannesburg, from Pretoria to I've been on from Pretoria to Cape Town, but all of them interesting. So as you can imagine, those who probably have seen me before would know that I have done everything to try and attempt suicide. I have yet to succeed. So I've jumped off of every aeroplane I can see. I've done every single bungee jumping from the tallest one in the world. I have been to the highest mountain, obviously, well, the highest freestanding mountain in the world is Kilimanjaro. So I've been on that a couple of times. I've been to the furthest north part of the continent, to the furthest south, to furthest west, furthest east, furthest centers, lowest part of the continent. So I've covered the continent in all its glory, and I've tried to do it in an interesting way. I've tried to be daring. I've tried to be myself, but I think I've always been a daring person. But I've also tried to immerse myself in the continent. So so that's why some people, because you know, some people don't know. They always say to me, "Are you South African?" Because when I arrive in, I think we're walking from Sudan with TK, my friend from TK, coming all the way from Sudan, from seeing the pyramids, and we stop in the middle of the road. I said, TK, this is a perfect picture. That's the one that I'm walking in the middle of the road. But I've done everything from the churches in Ethiopia, which I've done several times, from everywhere in the continent, and every place I arrived, and I've learned this, which is, I think, I guess what Ntobin was talking about is every place I arrived, I tried to be in the place. I've learned one thing about traveling the continent, but really about traveling anywhere else, is as a South African, whenever I leave the airport, I leave South Africa at the airport. So that whatever country I arrive at, I take in that country and become a part of it. And that's about the only way that you're going to understand the country. So, you know, a few years ago, I met the chief executive of Samsung for the continent, KK Park then, and he said to me, and I said to him, KK, then I hadn't finished the continent. I'd done about 20 countries or so. And actually, we have to blame KK for my madness. And I said, KK, how come you guys are in every single country in the continent? Because they were in every country except for Swaziland, I think, at that stage. He said, my friend, because I've been in all of them. Since I've been in every country, I've sat in their homes, and since when I travel, I sleep in their homes. I don't stay in these fancy hotels. I eat with them and I see the conditions of the country. And he says that's what inspired our Build for Africa initiative. Because with our Build for Africa initiative, we're able to produce initiatives such as their solar-based ranged. Because that was based on the common insight that there's electricity issues, but there's no sun issues. So why don't you turn the sun into a source of energy for your products? And that innovation comes from here, goes to the rest of the world. So everywhere I go, I've pretty much, I try to not just to have fun, not just be daring, but also to try a little bit of the history. I've been to every single slave castle in the continent. I think every single one of them, whether it's the ones which are done by the colonists or ones which are done by ourselves in the genocide of Ethiopia, of Rwanda in 1994. I think I've been to Rwanda, the third most among all. I've been about 100 times to Ghana, and perhaps in between that, anywhere down to Rwanda will be maybe 10, 12 times. I've eaten everything. I have eaten. I was on the radio with Somizi, and Somizi said something interesting to me. He says to me, Thebe, I could never travel anywhere with you because you just eat anything. It's like the things you eat, I don't think are edible, Thebe. I said, Somizi, but you eat McDonald's. You eat sushi. You eat whatever those funny things they call chow mein, whatever they call them. It's the same thing. You train your body to adjust. How come it's so easy for us to adjust to everything from Asia, everything from Europe, and then we look down at everything from Africa? So I ate whatever they put in front of me. And when I mean that, so I was sitting in Equatorial Guinea. Equatorial Guinea was the last country I've been to. So I arrived in Equatorial Guinea, and I said to my driver, because wherever I go, I try not to be touristic. I hope I'm not touristic, but I try not to be touristic. I try to just relax, to be in the country, to be one with them. And I said to my driver, let's go eat. He's like, I said, no, not restaurants. I don't do restaurants, my friends. I said, I don't even go to restaurants in South Africa. I've been to too many. So I don't do restaurants anymore. I just eat with people. So he says, okay, what do you want to eat? I said, let's go eat with the people. Where you eat? I said, where do you eat? He says, where I eat, you may. I said, let's go there. So we go to where he ate. We sat around there. I enjoyed my food. As you can imagine, I can see with my size that I eat whatever comes my way. So I ate. I was chowing. Then I said to the chef, Chef, this meat is interesting. It's a bit hard, but it's nice. The sauce, you know how they mix the sauce. I said, but the sauce is so nice. And he says, I said, what is it, chef? He says, it's meat. I said, yes, we know it's meat. We're talking lamb. We're talking beef. We're talking pork. What are we talking about? He says, fresh meat. So I could see the brother was getting a bit irritated. So we go out of so we eat, I finish up. I'm on eat the food. Normally I don't ask questions, I just eat. I just thought maybe it's a recipe I could use sometime. So I left the place, and as we leave the place with the driver, and voila, on the right-hand side, sorry. Ah! On the right-hand side, I see that roasting. I said to the driver, what is that? Fresh meat, sir. So, you have to be one with the people. So, people. So, I've got lots of stories of how I got out of other countries, and but we're going to speak about proper wars today, not the wars with guns, because I've seen a couple of wars in the continent. One of the most important wars that you come across in the continent is who's got the biggest gorillas. So I decided, let me go see the silverbacks. So I went to Uganda, up the mountains, went to Rwanda, up the mountains to see the gorillas. Same thing to me. But we leave it between the Rwandans, the Congolese, and the Ugandans to decide who's got the best silverbacks, who's got the most silverbacks. Whoever you go to, they tell you they've got bigger, better one, the big population and all those. Interesting. So there's always competition. Who makes the best jollof? So I arrived in Gambia. and we tried to find food, and we couldn't find food. Actually, we looked for a place. We said, where's a good place to eat? They're like, yeah, you want to find the best chef in Gambia. We're like, where? Like, you drive around, we turn left, we look, we find the chef. So we find the chef, set at the house, and we get to understand she is the best jollof cook or chef in the world. Beat the Nigerians, beat the Ghanaians, beat the Senegalese. So there'll always be war. So last year for Africa Day, I flew the chef into South Africa to come and cook chef jollof for some of my friends. Had an Africa Day something, and I brought them all. My Nigerian friends were not very happy. Because you know Nigerians, they say, Ogana, we can't bring somebody from a small town to come and make jollof. When we know how to make jollof, not this woman. There's some other interesting words. This is Burkina Faso. I went out into the streets in Burkina Faso and I was walking, and the kids were boycotting in the street. I said, what you boycotting about? They're like, we don't want the French franc. Because, if across the whole continent, you'll imagine the French are still running the continent on the Francophone countries, and the rest of us are everywhere else with our different currencies. Well, I think it's about 30 currencies and about 30 passport visas across the continent. So you can imagine. But of course, the one thing I never got confused about is where I was. I never ever got confused as to where I was because I understood my coordinates very well. But then my grandfather is from Botswana as well. So I understood one thing. This is not one big country. This is 55 countries all at different levels of development. But the one thing that I also discovered around this is our common humanity, or just how important it is to be one with everybody. So I'm walking around in Somalia. I went to Somalia, I went to Mogadishu, because a friend of mine in Namibia said to me, I'm going to Somalia, I'm going to Hargeisa. He's like, I've lost all respect for you. I said, what do you mean? He says, that's not Somalia. If you want to go to Somalia, you need to go to Mogadishu, you need to be dodging bullets, you need to be, he says, that's where you need to be. So I said, Lars, you are right. Mogadishu it is. So I got onto a plane, whoop, Mogadishu. Arrived in Mogadishu, and I tried to go to this one place, which is the only place where they have a church. But that church was destroyed during one of the wars, the only non-Muslim structured church. And I looked for this place, and I didn't understand. There's the only place. There's a security guard. This guy here. There's a security guard here. So I'm walking about, and I said to him, I want to get there, to that church. I want to go see that only Roman Catholic church destroyed. And we start chatting the way I normally am. You can imagine how I am. I'm just a normal kid. I said, we start chatting about life, about everywhere else. He says to me, I said to him, I'm from South Africa. He's like, yeah, I saw it because I showed me the passport. I said, let me go there, and see. Because they had Mogadishu, if you go to Mogadishu, every 5 meters, there's a security. I'm exaggerating. But every 5, he says to me, you are Tswana, aren't you? I'm like, yeah, Tswana. He says, from Kimberley, right? I'm like, yo, I have heard of intelligence. But now, this is scary, because I'm both Tswana and I'm from Kimberley. I'm like, how do you know this? I used to live there, he says. I was like, wow. Just my brother lives in I think Warrenton or somewhere down the road from Kimberley. So interesting, because most of us, when we travel, we want to bring our stature, our status, our money, instead of our humanity. Because you'll get to understand when you bring yourself and you bring to talk to people for who they are, you get to see that they are just like you. They may have been the same places you've been, or they have the same struggles you have. So interesting. So what's interesting is the guy in the middle from Equatorial Guinea. From Equatorial Guinea, he took there was a big African meeting, so that was my tag to go in there. And he says, "Sir, can I use your tag?" I'm like, "Why?" It's like, you see, when I go in there, they will respect me because they see me with the tag. I said, "But you look like me." He says, "But we're both African," and they won't tell it. And the guy on the left-hand side in yellow, quite interesting. So I arrived in Morocco. So I'm in Senegal. I'm in Senegal. I want to go to Guinea-Bissau. So I had to take an aeroplane to Morocco, 4 hours up or something like that. Arrive in Morocco, and there's a commotion at the airport. The Moroccans, I don't know what's happening with these Africans. A bunch of them have come in. And so I see this guy in yellow at the airport. I'm like, what's happening? These bloody Moroccans don't want to let us through. I've been gone from my country for so long. I need to go home. I'm like, where's home? It says Guinea-Bissau. It says Chad. I'm like, Chad, I've never been to Chad. I'd never been to Chad, by the way. I said, I've never been to Chad. He's like, I haven't been to my country for 10 years. First time I'm going to my country, they better let me in. Oh, be there as it may, they let him in. I said to him, give me your numbers. Next time I go to Chad, how long are you going to be in Chad? Are you moving back? He says, no, I'm going to Chad for 10 days. I'm like, 10 days, and I'm on the way to Guinea-Bissau. I'm like, yo, give me your number. So I go to Guinea-Bissau, spend a few days there, come back to South Africa, look at I sit down in my office. Then I'm thinking, I haven't been to Chad. I don't know anybody in Chad. I do know somebody in Chad. Got this WhatsApp number. Dog, I'm on the way. He's like, what do you mean? I'm like, I got a visa one day. I'm on the way to Chad. So that's how I ended up in Chad. I ended up in Chad. I bumped into somebody at the airport. I figured somebody's going to have to show me Chad. I don't know what Chad looks like. So we arrive in my last story. We arrive in the middle of Gambia. So we arrive in Senegal at 2 a.m. We drive all the way to the border of Gambia and Senegal. We haven't been to Gambia. We want to get into Gambia. TK, myself, Delhi. I think it was the three of us. Yeah, I think. Yeah, when I get into Gambia, so we get to the airport, to the border, and we in a rented car. We have a driver, and they said your car can't go over. I'm like, what do you mean the car can't go over? It's got 4 wheels. No, but you don't have insurance. No, the car is insured. Yes, Senegal. You now need to be insured for the other side. Like, yo, it is 5 in the morning. Where am I going to get insurance at 5 in the morning? We meet some guy right next door waiting for people like us. Says, my friend, insurance is not your problem. Just follow me. So get into a combi. We leave TK them in another car. We drive, me and, I can't remember where else it was. We drive all the way. It's dark. So we arrive there. We see people in torches, torching, writing policies. We're like, policies at 5 in the morning. So now, South African mindset, must be fake. That's South African mindset, right? No. He actually is a proper underwriter. He buys them ahead of time for people like us to be ready for such situations and writes us up a policy. So, sometimes we forget because we always have that mindset that it's perhaps somebody's going to do, somebody wants something negative from us. That's why Mandela says, if you talk to somebody in their language to understand, it goes to the head. Or if you talk to them in their own language, it goes to the heart. So however crooked your French is, you just try 2, 3 words, because at least you are somewhere in the heart. With those two, three words. But the one thing that you remember is that if you reject the food, you ignore the customs, you fear the religion, you avoid the people, just stay home. Just stay home. Next time you want to get out of this country or any other country, doesn't matter where it is, because we do this when we go to America, when we go to France, or when we go to Europe. But when we go to our fellow countries, we all of a sudden have got expectations. If I were in South Africa, things will be working. You are not in South Africa. So just adjust to the country you're in very quickly. So, but the one thing you know about traveling is that you get to understand yourself a little bit better. Get to understand a little bit better as to who you are and where you fit in. And the common things across the continent that I'm sure that people have their own summary, there's no theory to this, is this sense of humanity. Ubuntu, as we call it in South Africa. Bump into somebody, never met them, come visit me, come eat at my house, come to all those. I think you saw pictures. I'm eating at people's homes, I'm eating everywhere else. Our resilience, people are strong. People suffer more than we think we suffer. They go through a lot more and they persevere. A sense of entrepreneurship, I think my last example was that example of entrepreneurship. But creativity, people are creative in the continent. Very creative. Underline optimism, because yes, we are optimistic, but to a certain extent. I think even optimism now has got its limits, and that's the challenge that we have. Of course, I travel for one important reason when I travel. I travel because I want to deepen my consciousness and my identity with the continent. If you identify with the continent, then you will have an identity. But most importantly, when I travel, keep my eyes open. What brands are coming up? What brands are doing? What brands are? Which brands are active in the continent? But you know, I was in Asmara, not Asmara, Canberra. From Asmara, forget the other town from Asmara. And there was Asmara. If you've been to Eritrea, you'll understand it's a clean place. Clean as in very few billboards if you find one. Very little litter if you find any. I only saw one billboard, Coca-Cola. This one, in the middle of, that's like incredible. There's still some places which are not being polluted. And then, of course, MTN is where you go, 22 countries. And Ethiopian Airways is every country in the continent that you want to go to. So, the last 10 years, out of boredom, I've studied brands. I've done a survey across brands. I'm sure some of you have seen this. A lot of people actually have no clue that it's me, but it really doesn't bother me because I'm not Donald Trump. I just do things for the good reasons and not for the ego. So for the last 10 years, I've been studying brands across the continent, and I've done this survey, Africa's Best Brands. It's been a cover of African Business for the last 10 years. We've learned a few things to close. This is what I've learned among the top 100 most admired brands in the continent. This year, only 13% of the brands that Africans admire are African. We have a problem because we do not identify with ourselves. Because it is very easy for us to support other brands out of the continent than others. And then we now have to go to IMF and go borrow cash because we can't create our own cash here because we don't own nothing in this continent. So you can't see that. So if you look at that, if you look at that for the last few years, Nike, number one brand. Africa, Dangote, MTN. I'm sure you know that already. Those are the top brands in the continent. So I just thought, but our brands have gone, African brands have gone down by 14% over the last 10 years. 20% of the brands on average that Africans admire, only 20% are African. And the brands that they admire are not made by Africa. As you know, they all come from everybody else but Africa. And then in the last 10 years, I tried to understand, so where do the brands that Africans admire come from? 16 countries in the continent make up the brands that Africans admire. Majority of them, South Africa or Nigeria, South Africa, Kenya. That's where the brands come from this continent. I think you've seen the brands which have been consistent in the rankings: Dangote, DSTV, Glow, Kansi, MTN, Safaricom, Shoprite, Tiger Brands, and Tusker. Those are the brands that have sort of featured among the most here. And then, so then we tried to see where were most of the brands by decades. And what was interesting is most of South Africa's brands were created before independence. Most of Nigeria and Kenya's brands were created after independence. South Africans have been fast asleep since independence. And then they wonder why things are not going well for them. Because we've done shit. We've just been chilling. And we have not been creating great brands since then. Yeah, they see one or two brands, but we've done nothing. We have abused the freedom we've received. We have created nothing that matters except that matters at Zondo Commission. And then, of course, you can see when non-African brands, most of their brands were in the 80s. I'm closing in a few minutes. The average age, 40 years for African brands, 80 years for non-African brands. And you can see the range. African brands are as young as 4 years to as old as 134, but as Castle is an outlier. And then the Dutch have taken it anyway. Or is it the Belgian? I don't know who it is. Or the Brazilians, InBev. And then the non-African brands, 6 years, I tell, to 261 years old, the Guinness brand. Where do Africans put their money when they create brands? They want to get drunk. They want to cash, they want to eat, they want to talk. That's it. Ask us not much. We just want to booze, we just want to eat, we just want to talk. That's where most of our brands are. And where does the rest of the world, and the brands that we love from the rest of the world, we want to dress well. We want to drive well. And we want to, what's the third category? Oh, electronics. We can relate to that, right? iPhone, Apple, Samsung, Gucci, Louis Vuitton, Hermes. You can think that's us. That's us. But when we need to create brands, we just want to get drunk. And then we sit around and we say, I am true in the last slide. And then we sit around and we say, Africa is rising. How long is this damn place going to rise? If this was done, it would have flopped by now. Because it's been rising forever. We need to go back to the script in 1963. The script was quite simple. The script of Kwame Nkrumah on the eve of the African Union, what did they say? Create a common market for Africa. They only agreed on it last year. Create an African currency, still dilly-dallying. We have to African monetary zone, while the French are still running Francophone. Create an African central bank, the Francophones are running the money out of France. Continental communication system, common foreign policy and diplomacy. No, please go to the UN to come and guard us. Somebody's trying to take our presidency. Common system of defense, common African citizenship. They've been going on with this African passport forever. When is this thing going to happen? So that's the challenge that we have as a continent. We are not short of ideas. We are short of action. Because since 1963, so that's why, you know, when they do 50 years of the African Union and they come up with a big blueprint of a prosperous, peaceful, and united continent, and they relist these things, you should be embarrassed because they've been here forever. We are not rising. We got cash, money, there's lots of money here. We're urbanizing. We are making babies. We are connected. We are connecting, they say they're going to do. For us to get ahead, we must unite now or perish. As we said in 1963, we keep saying, Africa, your time is now. Africa, your time is passing. Stop begging, blaming, and borrowing, and get ahead with the business of building great brands. Move up the ladder from just passing your raw material off to China and giving them your countries, producing stuff. What we need to do, we need to add some value and we need to create brands. That's what we need to do as Africans, because only then will we create economic value that we can keep and that we can run our countries on our own terms. Because now we've just mortgaged South Africa for the next 2 generations and join the rest of the continent. So we're not in charge of this part. But we can fix it if we Africa and build Africa. So in 2 weeks, I will launch this initiative to drive buying African-made products. So let's stop talking. Can we just buy the shit? Thank you.